How do you really make change? And maybe, just maybe, you make change if you can speak to people in a language they understand. To talk to us about that, our next TEDx speaker, Dr. Naif Al Mutawa.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm going to talk to you about the 99, but before that, a little story that happened this summer about speaking people's languages. I have 5 boys. My 4th is a Scooby-Doo addict. Last year, he got angry at me over dinner and called me a meddling kid. But this summer, I was writing in my office in New York, in my house in New York, and I'm one of those people. I didn't choose to be a writer. Writing chose me, and if I have to write and I'm not writing, you don't want to be around me. I'm not a lot of fun. And my son came to me in my office and said, Baba, he had left a Scooby-Doo toy in his playhouse in the yard. Can you come with me get the Scooby-Doo toy? I said, I gave him this look. I said, Rayan, later. So he looked at the ground, looked back up to me and said, Baba, I want you to come with me to my office in my house. I have work to do. He's 3.5 and he brought himself down to my level. The 99. I graduated from university in 1994, came back to Kuwait, and within a few months somebody got fired from their job because of their religion. I was wondering what planet I had just landed on. Because to add insult to injury, the person that fired this man gave out leaflets to the community apologizing that had he known this guy's religion, he wouldn't have hired him to begin with. So I was confused. I wrote about it in the press, and it didn't really work for me. And so I wrote and illustrated what I thought was a book for adults, but UNESCO thought otherwise. Gave me an award for children's literature. And so as not to argue with them, it became a 3-book series. The first one did really well. The second one did really well. The third one got banned. The 4th one got banned. I quit writing at the age of 27. I said, enough. I'm not doing this anymore. Went to graduate school to become a clinical psychologist because my parents told me, I told them when I was 9 or 10, I said, I'm going to be a writer when I grew up. And they said, Naif, that's a great hobby. Don't ever think about doing that as a profession. And so I kind of, I was a closet writer. And did my training. I trained at Bellevue Hospital in the Survivors of Political Torture program. Because I spoke Arabic, my patients came out of this part of the world, but there were people there from all over the world. We do not have a monopoly on how not to treat others. Okay? And in my thinking during that process, I did it for a couple of years and I needed a break. And so I went to business school, which was kind of torture. Have you guys ever taken finance classes? People called Finance 101 baby finance, and I said, this thing grows up? So went to business school, and then I was 32. I had 3 master's degrees, a doctorate, didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. And I was making the annual pilgrimage of all Kuwaitis from Edgware Road to Harrods. I was with my mother and my sister, and my sister turns to me, she says, Naif, you remember you say you go back to writing after school? And I just wanted to shut her up. All these degrees, I'm going to go back to writing for kids. What's she thinking? So I said, somewhat, for me to go back, it has to have the potential of Pokemon. Otherwise, this makes 0 sense. Right? I say that, she shuts up, and I start thinking. I said Pokemon. My next thought was there had been a fatwa issued against Pokemon in this region. My next thought was, my God, what has happened to Islam, and who's making these random decisions for me? My next thought was of Allah and how disappointed He must be. My next thought was that Allah had 99 attributes, and ironically, it brought me full circle back to Pokemon. I get out of the cab at Harrods, I turn to my sister, I said, what do you think of this? She loved it, and the rest is history. So I ran with it. I raised, within a few months, I'd written the business plan, wrote the concept, the character Bible, or the character guide, as we call it, and raised $7 million from 54 investors in 8 countries. $1 million came to me from my classmates in business school. I have investors from Saudi and Lebanon and Kuwait and China and Mexico. The reason for the diversity is the business school. But of all my accomplishments, the one I think that was the most challenging was I think I'm the only Gulf citizen that went to Beirut and actually came out with money. One of the questions I kept getting asked, did you talk to any religious scholars? And I would always avoid that question like the plague, right? If I get pushed, I say, well, I spoke to Emo Phillips. Sheikh Phillips, we haven't heard of him. Well, that's a good thing because he's a comedian. What do you mean? I said, well, Emo Phillips said that up until the age of 10, he used to pray to God every day for a bicycle. And at 10, he realized that God didn't work that way, so he stole the bicycle and started praying for forgiveness. I knew in my heart that if I went to somebody and said, this is what I want to do with the 99 attributes of Allah, they would have told me the 100 reasons why I shouldn't do it. And I knew myself enough to know that I'd do it anyway. So why deal with that? So we created the concept. I got an outpouring of support from various scholars from all over the world, but not in the most conservative countries where we were not allowed into a couple countries for a couple of years. And the way I dealt with that, I didn't quit writing like I did when I was 27 because I had millions of dollars from other people, though it was tempting. When I did my second round of finance, I raised $16 million from an Islamic investment bank, okay? And they have 7-member Sharia board who approve what I'm doing for Islamic audiences, and we were allowed into the more conservative places on earth. And a cute story from back then is my son, Faisal, came up to me. I was on the phone, and my kids love what I do. I mean, superheroes, they're boys, and what do you think? And he said, I'm on the phone, Unicorn said this, Unicorn said that. You know, I'm going to have dinner with Unicorn. I hang up. Faisal comes to me, big brown eye. He said, Baba, I said, what? So you talk to unicorns too?